Have you ever had that unsettling feeling, almost impossible to explain, that you weren't alone, even when everything around you seemed completely empty, silent, and lifeless? That impression that something is watching you, following your every step, waiting for the exact moment to reveal itself. And when you finally gather the courage to look back, trying to prove to yourself that it's just in your head, there's absolutely nothing there. Now imagine living through exactly that, except this time there was something there, something that shouldn't exist, something that should never have been seen. This story begins like any other ordinary night, the kind you barely remember after it ends. A simple routine, a normal day, a quiet ride back home. But that's exactly how the strangest things begin, in a silent, almost imperceptible way, until, when you realize it, you're already completely involved in something that escapes any logical explanation. The most disturbing part of all isn't just what happened, but the fact that it could happen to anyone, anywhere, on any seemingly harmless night, until it isn't anymore. In that town, public transportation was never the best, especially in the more distant areas, so the bicycle ended up becoming the most practical, fastest, and, until then, safest way to get around, especially at night when everything is emptier and quieter. On that specific day, nothing indicated that anything out of the ordinary would happen. Everything went exactly as always, tasks completed, normal conversations, light laughter among friends at the sports center. Until, close to 10:30 at night, someone commented on the moon, which was full, bright, catching attention in the sky, and as happens in any group, someone decided to joke, saying that nights like that are perfect for strange things, for old legends to come to life, for witches, creatures, or anything else that should remain only in stories. Everyone laughed, completely ignoring the weight hidden in that simple sentence. As they left, each one went their own way, and he did the same, got on his bicycle and began pedaling toward his house, expecting just another quiet route, like so many others he had taken before. But a few minutes later, something started to feel wrong. There were no cars passing, no people walking. There was absolutely no one. Something unusual even for that time, and as much as he tried to ignore it, that strange feeling began to grow, spreading through his body like a silent warning that something wasn't right. But even so, he kept going, trying to convince himself that it was just coincidence, just a calmer night than usual. After some time, he approached the street he usually used as a shortcut, a practically mandatory choice, since avoiding it would mean increasing the route by almost half an hour, something unfeasible at that time, especially because he knew his mother was always waiting for his arrival so she could finally sleep peacefully. But that street itself already carried something different, something unsettling even during the day. With its overly tall trees, overly dim lighting, the uneven ground that constantly changed, and in the middle of it all, an old convent, silent, almost forgotten by time, with a wooden gate that always remained closed, creating a scene that seemed straight out of a horror movie. That's when everything truly began to change. A strong wind appeared out of nowhere, sudden, aggressive, as if it were announcing something, while dense clouds began to cover the moon, completely blocking the only natural source of light illuminating the path. And within seconds, everything went dark, far too dark, as if the night itself had decided to become deeper in that exact place. The flashlight he always carried, and that had never failed before, simply didn't work. No matter how many times he tried, it was as if something was preventing any form of light from existing there. And even so, pressured by time and the need to get home, he decided to continue, moving forward slowly, cautiously, without knowing that that decision would be the beginning of the worst moment of his life. As he moved forward, the environment seemed heavier and heavier, the air denser, even hard to breathe, as if something invisible were filling that space, watching, waiting, following every movement. And when he approached the convent gate, a chill ran through his entire body, something inexplicable, because that place wasn't new to him. He had passed there countless times, but that night there was something different, something wrong, something that simply shouldn't be there. And then, suddenly, the feeling came, that unmistakable feeling of being watched. Strong, intense, impossible to ignore, making him quickly turn back in a movement so abrupt he almost lost control of the bicycle. But when he looked, there was no one, absolutely nothing, just emptiness and silence. Trying to compose himself, he took deep breath, switched sides of the street, trying to create a false sense of safety, trying to convince himself that it was all just in his head. But a few seconds later, the feeling returned. Only this time it was different, much worse. It wasn't just one gaze, it was many, countless, as if he was surrounded by invisible presences, watching every movement, analyzing every reaction, waiting for something. And it was in that moment that he saw, in the darkness beside the convent, a shape, an extremely dark shadow, darker than the night itself, without a face, without details, but clearly in the form of something human. And then another appeared, and another, and another, until it was impossible to deny it. That wasn't a shadow. They were many, and they were moving toward him. Fear took over instantly, brutally, making him accelerate as fast as he could, his heart racing, his breathing out of control, while those forms advanced silently behind him, making no sound at all, yet getting closer and closer, as if they were gliding through the darkness. And no matter how hard he pedaled, it felt like the road never ended, as if he were trapped in that place, in a loop with no escape. Until finally, in the distance, he saw a light, faint at first, but enough to reignite a sliver of hope. And then he pushed even harder, putting all his strength into that final effort, crossing that line of light as if escaping from something that shouldn't exist. Upon reaching the lit area, he gathered the courage to look back, expecting to see those shadows still there, maybe something worse, but there was nothing, absolutely nothing, as if everything had disappeared the instant he left the darkness. And without thinking twice, he kept pedaling as fast as possible until he got home, still overwhelmed by fear, by shock, by the feeling that it wasn't truly over. When he entered the house, his mother immediately noticed that something was wrong. His pale face, his trembling body, his distant gaze, and even trying to hide it, he couldn't. He ended up telling everything through tears and broken breathing, and as a deeply religious person, she decided to do what she believed was necessary. She lit candles, said prayers, performed a kind of spiritual cleansing, and placed eggs under the bed, an old ritual that, according to her, would serve to absorb any negative energy that might have come with him that night. The strangest part is that, despite everything, he slept well, as if nothing had happened, as if he were protected by something. But the next morning, when they went to check the eggs, something completely inexplicable happened. The egg white was dark, almost black, and the yolk completely cooked, as if it had been exposed to intense heat during the night. Something impossible, something that made no sense at all. And even after calling someone who understood these things, the answer was vague, uncertain, mentioning shadow entities, obsessive spirits, but without any real certainty. Today, every time he needs to pass through that street, he makes a silent request not to see that again, not to feel that presence, not to be followed once more. But the questions remain, echoing in his mind, without answers, without explanation. Because what were those things? Why were they there? Why did they choose him? And perhaps the most disturbing question of all is, if that was so close to a place considered sacred, then how far can these things really reach? If this story stayed in your mind, then you need to see the next one, because what comes next manages to be even more disturbing. Good night, and be careful with what might be watching you when you're alone in the dark.